There are few, if any, media formats that inspire the fervent passion of comic books. In video game form, there had been adaptations of superheroes and villains before, but in the early 90s, direct connections started to be made between games and specific story arcs being present in contemporary issues. One of these was X-Men, Children of the Atom, the first game involving superheroes produced in the game genre that inspires as much passion as comics, fighting games. Based on the 1993 X-Men arc Fatal Attraction, Children of the Atom featured characters from the X-Men universe, slotted into Capcom's vivid, top-of-the-line Street Fighter engine. This, in true comic book form, inspired a massive crossover event in 1996's X-Men vs. Street Fighter, adding back in the regular Street Fighter roster to fight the X-Men. This was followed by 1997's Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, which swapped out the X-Men for a general roster of Marvel Comics characters. For their next game, it was Street Fighter's turn, and they zoomed even further out to include characters from all sorts of Capcom properties, and called it Marvel vs. Capcom: Clash of Superheroes. On consoles, these games had been necessarily limited, stripped-down versions of the arcade originals, due to the inferiority of the hardware. Sega had managed the best on the Saturn, but inevitably, a lot of the true breadth of the arcade's visual and technical depth had to be restrained to function properly. Sega's next console, the Dreamcast, newly released in 1999, had hardware that was equal to, or in some ways superior, to arcade chips. So for the first time, the true Marvel vs. Capcom experience was finally available at home. Like its predecessors, Marvel vs. Capcom is an absolutely gorgeous 2D fighting game, the final game in the series to be fully two-dimensional, and features characters from Street Fighter and other Capcom properties, as well as a series of characters from Marvel Comics battling it out for supremacy. As far as characters go, the game also sort of cruelly teases a massive number of characters available only to assist in team battles, but not actually available to play as. And I found myself really wishing there were more available options to choose from, especially as they already existed so thoroughly in the world. 1991's Street Fighter II: The World Warrior innovated a complex control scheme involving combination streaks and strategically deployed power strikes that the series built upon and added to with each entry. By the time of Marvel vs. Capcom, playing a match means there's so many different processes happening at once that it can feel somewhat alienating to a novice. Just a lot of dizzying color, sound, and chaos. And sometimes it's hard to tell even who's getting hit and how it's happening. There's multi-hit combos and grab moves, and team battle jump-in assistance and special projectile moves. And sometimes the ground turns blue and one of us just gets fucked up, and sometimes I wasn't sure why. But sitting down to it long term, and reading the manual for a few minutes, it starts becoming clear how to balance your attacks, and you can really see the impressive depth and strategy at work here. The initial setup has you pick between manual and easy controls, as well as turbo versus normal speed. So right off the bat, the game gives you 4 play structure options, and the differences are stark. Even on easy control, normal speed, the game expects you to build and grow with it. A relatively easy first set of opponents, to increasing difficulty right away. Learning how to play Marvel vs. Capcom is an exercise in consistently getting your ass kicked. But never do the losses feel cheap. I never feel like I've been cheated. One of the many themes I've come back to time and again in this series is precision. The thin line between being hard in a way that makes you want to master it, and being hard in a way that makes you want to quit. Marvel vs. Capcom is absolutely the former, and as you get more familiar with the button layout and where you can plan your attacks, every loss feels like an opportunity to think more wisely and play more sensibly the next time around. Familiarizing myself with this game for the first time, it's very clear why it occupies such a vaunted, meaningful space in the fighting game canon. Aesthetically, it's rad as f***, with cool, bombastic music, and a beautiful, sometimes breathtaking visual style that doesn't sacrifice anything at the altar of then novel but ugly 3D rendering. Something the perfect Angel Soul Calibur executes perfectly, but something that proves embarrassing for other long-running series like Mortal Kombat or, spoiler alert, Virtua Fighter. Instead of pushing limits for ungainly 3D, Marvel vs. Capcom uses the Dreamcast's extra hardware space to push the speed, the visuals, the chaos, and yes, the precision, to put together an absolutely masterful fighting classic. Next time, let's hop in the boat and wiggle our lures. Sega's got a niche peripheral.